daughter, sister, cousin, aunt, great aunt, nurse, epidemiologist, researcher, leader, feminist, Overeaters Anonymous member, gardener, neighbor, singer, artist, animal and nature lover, world traveler, friend. So it's wonderful to see so many people here, family and friends, to celebrate the remarkable life of Katherine Newton. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. Today we hope to reflect on the many facets of Katherine in more detail. Before we begin, allow me to introduce myself. I'm DeAnn Lazovich, and like you, Katherine's friend. Even if we haven't met, you may know me a bit through the Caring Bridge post that I put up during her illness. And I hope to meet many of you during the celebration. I've had a chance to meet some of you beforehand, and that's been wonderful. I'll be guiding us through today's ceremony to the best of my ability. You can already tell you could expect some tears. So I'd like to start our ceremony today by introducing Andrea LaCroix. Andrea was Katherine's dissertation advisor, and Katherine was her very first doctoral student. Interestingly, and you never forget your first, right? Interestingly, they were both nurses before becoming epidemiologists. Little did Andrea know, when she accepted the role of dissertation advisor, that she and Katherine would become lifelong colleagues and friends. Andrea will now share her thoughts on this lifelong relationship with Katherine and Katherine's career. Andrea? Thanks, DeAnn, and thanks everyone for being here. It's incredible to look out upon you, and my only sadness is that Katherine's not here with us, because she would have loved having this party in her honor. Let me do this the way I wrote it. Dearest Katherine, I am standing in front of more than 80 of your closest family and friends, the people whose lives you touched. My job is to tell of your work life in a very few minutes. I suspect and hope that this group will not mind me doing so in the form of a letter to you, because they probably miss talking with you as much as I do. I first met you in the fall of 1989 when you came to see me as a doctoral student in the epidemiology program at the University of Washington. You already had an MS in nursing and had been head nurse of a cardiothoracic unit at the University of Washington. But you sought out a PhD in epidemiology because you were called to research that improves patients' lives. You said that you had been waiting for me to arrive, that you wanted to study women and heart disease, and you thought I would be a great faculty member to work with. I was so thrilled to meet you. You were an expert far more advanced than I on having fun and enjoying life. And you became my mentor in hedonism. Hedonism is defined in the dictionary as the ethical theory that pleasure and the sense of satisfaction of desires is the highest good and proper aim of human life. During your doctoral studies, you competed successfully for an NIH F31. I believe you got a perfect score, and your grant was entitled Estrogen Replacement and Survival After MI in Women, awarded in 1992. You finished your dissertation some years of hard work later, and by then we were close friends. You did your postdoctoral fellowship at Group Health Cooperative Center for Health Studies, where I was also working, and you worked there for the rest of your life. We built a research program with Delia Scholes, Susan Reed, focused on women's health across the life course, from premenopausal to midlife to aging women. You competed successfully for several R01 grants focused on use of alternative therapies for menopause symptoms, including herbs, soy diet, low-dose hormone therapy, yoga, and exercise. Through your seminal contributions in this area, you became a leader in midlife women's health research and a member of the board of the North American Menopause Society. You also returned to your interest in diabetes by developing a program to translate and disseminate the diabetes prevention program for delivery by telephone and through community-based trainings in Eastern Washington. You and I worked together on the digital resource My Menoplan website, a dream we had to help women in the United States and around the world know more about the menopause transition and the evidence-based treatments they could try for symptom relief. You brought your brilliance to My Menoplan until you could no longer type on the computer. These few words are but a mention of your life's work, which was meaningful and helpful to so many. Well done, Katherine. But most of all, you were always my friend in figuring out life, our aging bodies, our relationships with people, and the great adventures that were always out there for the taking. When work got tiresome, we would call each other and plan our next excursion. Professional meetings of various sorts and vacations took us to snorkeling and hiking destinations far and near, including Oahu, the Big Island, and Heron Island in the Great Barrier Reef. Most of all, I loved our walks, during which we could talk for hours about so many ordinary mysteries of our daily lives. How I loved to hear your voice, which always brought us together again, wherever we were, whatever we were doing. So thank you, dear one, for traveling the planet with me. These past 34 years, and know that I will always love you. That the work you did shifted paradigms, and the lives you touch will carry your light forward. With tremendous gratitude, your friend, Andrea. Thank you so much.
You said expect tears, right? It'll be maybe from all of us. Janine Shelley, many of you know Janine. She's a glass artist. She met Katherine in a glass class on Whidbey Island in 2013. Janine had traveled from her home in Illinois to attend the class. After having dinner at Katherine's beautiful Whidbey Island home, Janine saw the possibilities of making Whidbey Island her permanent residence. She and her husband promptly bought property on the island, built a house, and have lived on Whidbey ever since 2014. Janine and Katherine shared their love of glass art and Whidbey Island and each other from that time on. And Janine is going to talk a little bit about Katherine, the artist. I want to make sure this is the right.
Thank you very much. And there will be slides of her work behind me, so please notice this. I met Katherine Newton October 4th, 2013, day one of a week-long Richard Lalonde class on Whidbey Island. I learned that Katherine lived and worked in Seattle and was an enthusiastic glass artist on the side. We parted after class acquaintances. Normally, I would remember our pleasant time together during the class, never to meet again. That's not what happened. My husband Steve and I became Whidbey Island residents 10 months later. And I became a friend of Katherine Newton. We both were founding members of the Whidbey Island Glass Guild, WIG, a group of fused glass artists that met regularly at Richard Lalonde's studio. You can see in her art, you can see Katherine in her art. Her geometric pieces are a combination of science and whimsy with a lot of bright colors thrown in. They are joyful, experimental, and celebratory. My first introduction to Katherine's art was her Tree of Life, or as Katherine called it, her Tata Lady. This was the piece she made during Richard Lalonde's class in 2013, and you can actually see it over here on the table. In my opinion, this piece is the epitome of Katherine's view of life. You can see her sense of humor with the vagina in the tree, and her adventurous view of life, attitude of come and get me, I'm ready and waiting to experience you. It's kind of the hedonism that she mentioned. I'm sorry that I never discussed the meaning of life, or the meaning of the turtle, but turtles were a thing for her. And if you visit her home, she had made the turtle for the glass turtle for her game. Katherine continuously experimented with new glass techniques. Her earrings are not just fused pieces of glass hanging from a wire. They required the process of weighing down the glass down with kiln blocks during the firing to make the glass very thin and much more comfortable to wear. From these examples, you can see her talent for mixing colors to achieve a beautiful piece of work. These next two pieces are among my favorites. Here is the toothy chicken. This piece is the epitome of Katherine's imagination and creativity. It evokes both celebration and strength. It is also an excellent example of the original use of color and superb fused glass technique. I'm sure this piece required at least 3 firings, probably more. Katherine told me that the flying pig evolved from her doodles, often done during her downtime working in the gallery. This piece makes me smile every time I look at it. Like all of her pieces, it embodies her whimsy, her use of color, and her skills in fused glass. Both of these pieces sold quickly in the gallery. This was Katherine's last piece, and you can see it right over here. She created the design, selected the glass, and began cutting the piece out. She was unable to finish it. I finished cutting the piece and fused it, but it's missing Katherine's final touches, her squiggles, her dots, and her whimsical shapes. Katherine's art evolved considerably during the few years she spent on Whidbey. She found her confidence in the medium and continued to learn and experiment with new techniques. Her designs were unique. There's a piece of Katherine, oh God, here goes, in every piece of art she made. Her intelligence, sense of humor, and her zest for life. Thank you.
I met Sharon Levan once before in person. I knew she was a very important part of Katherine's life. Nearly every evening, no matter where Katherine was, whether she had visitors, whether she was at home or she was traveling with others, Sharon and Katherine spoke by phone, supporting each other as they navigated the Overeaters Anonymous path toward a healthy relationship with food and a spiritually meaningful life. I'm looking forward to learning more about their special relationship through OA. Sharon, there she is.
Hi, everyone.
Sharon.
Oh. You know, through recovery, we get our feelings. And so it's a day of feelings. And I've learned they won't kill us, even though it feels like they will sometimes, though, huh? We were told to shoot for about 5 minutes to talk, and it's not very long. So I want to talk about what Katherine meant to me personally. And you heard DeAnn share that we would always talk at 9:30, no matter what, and I want to tell you about that. So about 4 years ago, Katherine came to one of my home meetings and shared that she was looking for ways to support herself better in the evening. And was anybody interested in doing something together? Well, I called her and we agreed we'd try talking in the evening. And so for 3.5 years of her life, until she got too sick to do it, we talked on the phone together at 9:30, nearly every night. We talked about our day, our feelings, our joys, our sorrows, our mistakes, what we might do to repair them. We listened deeply to each other and supported each other in the many ups and downs of recovery. And Brene Brown, a wonderful researcher, says that you increase intimacy through being vulnerable and real with someone. And we did that together. That's a really precious gift. So, 5 minutes isn't very long. I think I have a blessing, and I want to do that as I end. But I also want to say this. So, I want you to rise, if you're able to. I'd like you to rise for a blessing. So, Katherine, may you continue to inspire us to enter each day with a generous and loving heart, to commit to what is really important, and to also find joy and whimsy in living, to grow in our ability to be compassionate, to forgive, and to become who we are really meant to be our best selves, and to humbly and continually look for ways to be of service to others and to the world. Thank you for so many gifts, Katherine. Amen.
Barb Metch is going to speak next. Barb and Katherine met in 1986 in the inaugural meeting of a Stitch and Bitch group organized by a mutual friend. Katherine at the time was a fabulous knitter. Barb was a retired biostatistician, and she worked in cancer and HIV research at Fred Hutch. So she and Katherine shared their passion for research as well. But more than that, Barb joined Katherine in many of her travel adventures. Some of the places they visited together included Turkey, Oaxaca, Ecuador, and Belize, plus numerous places stateside. Barb, more than anyone else, can speak firsthand to Katherine's spirit of adventure.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for being here to share in this celebration of Katherine's amazing life. I know several of you here, many of you here have traveled with Katherine to different places, and she was just a wonderful person to travel with. She had just a great sense of adventure. She was open to meeting new people along the way. She loved to do new things, to go to new places. And so it was just a joy to travel with her. And also, she was an incredibly good listener and also a good conversationalist. So I think anybody that traveled with her just had many meaningful conversations with her. So I'm just going to share a couple trips. But the first one I wanted to talk about is actually not one that I took with Katherine, but I think it really impacted her life incredibly. So I don't know how many people here know, I think probably a lot of people know that Katherine had a lovely soprano voice. She loved to sing, and for much of her life she participated in choirs. And it was through this love of singing that led her on, I think, what was probably her first major travel adventure. So when she was 18, and she was just a freshman at the University of California at Santa Barbara, she was accepted into the chamber choir, which was just 16 members. And in that year, when she was a freshman, the choir was invited by the US State Department to do a cultural tour in the Far East and New Zealand and Australia. So some of the places they went to in Asia were, let's see, Japan, Taiwan, Laos, Thailand, and Hong Kong. And keep in mind, this is 1967, so there weren't a lot of American tourists in these countries at that time. And they performed in a lot of like local communities, and the communities would provide meals for the choir. So they often had dinners in places like this with local community members. So she had a lot of opportunity to interact with people from these countries. And her brother Ray shared with me a little newspaper clipping that summarized the trip. And in that clipping, it was reported that Katherine said that what she learned from her trip was that people are the same the world over, and that what counts is what is on the inside, not color or social status. And I really think, you know, she's 18 years old and saying this, but I think that has carried over her entire life, that philosophy. So the first trip I took with Katherine was actually not a big adventure overseas, but it was to go visit her mother and her Aunt Irma, who were living in Morro Bay on the California coast. And we flew into San Jose, and we went to get our economy rental car. And we went to the counter, and the assistant, he was looking up our reservation, and he was taking a long time. And he finally turned to us and he said, well, we don't have your car. And so we were like, well, what are we supposed to do? We have no car. And he goes, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna upgrade you. And it's no cost to you. And so we said, okay, this is good. So he said, well, I can give you a compact car. And we said, oh, you know, that would work. And then he looked at us, and he was a little hesitant. And he said, well, do you have much luggage with you? And I think he thought, you know, two women would probably have a lot of luggage. But and we said, no. He goes, well, would you be interested in a convertible Mazda Miata? Yes. Miata. And so we just had a blast in our little red sports car, driving down Route 1 along the California coast. And the top was down and the wind was blowing our hair. And it was, the other funny thing was when we got to California, we visited Aunt Irma, and only a few of you knew her, but she was a real spitfire of a person. And she was just so excited about this car. So we had to take Irma for a drive. And we also had a wonderful time visiting with Katherine's mother, but she wasn't quite so enthusiastic about the car. So that was my first trip with Katherine, and we had several other adventures that DeAnn mentioned where we traveled, you know, different places in the world. But the last trip I took with Katherine was actually in 2019, and that was to Belize, and it was to celebrate Katherine's 70th birthday and my retirement. And 5 days of that trip, we were there for 2 weeks, but 5 days were, full days were spent snorkeling, which anybody who knows Katherine knows how much she loved to snorkel. And it was literally 5 days out on the boat in the water, and we actually every day would spend at least 4 days snorkeling in the water. And the coast in Belize is just beautiful. The reefs for snorkeling. There's incredible coral of different colors, different shapes, and lots of tropical fish, rays, and sea turtles. And you've heard other people mention Katherine's love of turtles, and she really just had an affinity. I think that was one of her spirit animals that guided her through life. So, and I guess some of you, Janine mentioned the gate at her house here on Whidbey, if you've ever seen it. It's a beautiful metal and glass gate that Katherine designed and did the glass work for, and it depicts a sea turtle swimming through the ocean. So, as I was thinking about what I was going to say in this talk and kind of mulling over, I was like, well, how am I going to end it without breaking down crying? So, and at that time, about a week ago, I had to send a birthday card to a friend, and I was looking through the stack of cards that I had, and I came across this one, which you can't see, but it's entitled Advice from a Sea Turtle. And I thought, how perfect. Katherine has sent me words to say. Because a lot of this, I think, is Katherine's, kind of some of her philosophy. So we have, in conclusion, advice from a sea turtle. So know when to swim with the current. Be a good navigator. Stay calm under pressure. Be well-traveled. Think long-term. Age gracefully. And spend time at the ocean.
Great.
Thank you.
Paul Newton is Katherine's first cousin from Vermont. I had the great pleasure of meeting Paul and his wife Kristen when they came to Whidbey Island to see Katherine shortly after her diagnosis. They arrived in the nick of time, as Katherine had an appointment to see the radiation oncologist in Seattle, and her cat Rocky had an appointment with a specialty vet in Linwood to check out his severe injury from a coyote, and these appointments were on exactly the same day. So together we needed more hands on deck, and together we divided and conquered, with Kristen taking the cat to the Linwood vet and Paul and I taking Katherine to the Seattle doctor's appointment. Eventually we met up in Seattle and headed back to Whidbey Island, where Paul cooked another one of his fabulous meals, which we enjoyed that evening on Katherine's deck. Paul will share his thoughts on Katherine and what she meant to the family.
I'm going to have my family come up with me for moral support and other things. Good afternoon. So we are Katherine's cousins, aka the East Coast Newtons. Tom and his wife Jennifer, Patsy, and her daughter Laura, and I'm Paul, and my wife Kristen. Our Dorothy, sorry, that's the one. Yeah, she's written here. I just written. My sister Dorothy as well, and our brothers Bill and Peter also sent their love along with their wives Ellen and Monica. In assembling these words, I struggled to match them to our feelings for Katherine. Fortunately, none of you need convincing what a wonderful person she is, so I will keep it short. On our visits last year, Kristen and I have been blown away by Katherine's amazing, abundant, and colorful array of friends. We have tried to analyze why she has so many, and we have so few. But we needn't have worried. In her will, Katherine left all of us to each other. Our fathers were as different as could be, a conservative military-industrial complex engineer in Orange County, and a blacklisted communist pacifist in the Paraguayan jungle. It may have been how they saw each other. But over the years, their 6 East Coast and 2 West Coast children grew close, and Katherine's efforts were key to that, visiting when her work brought her east, welcoming us to her homes, and joining in our family events, connecting more closely with each visit. Our brother Peter was struck by Katherine's warm acceptance of and enthusiastic appreciation for the diversity of cultures and worldviews. Tom and Jennifer remember her as warm, smart, kind, open-hearted, and adventurous. Patsy shared that Katherine was always loving and caring, a generous, thoughtful hostess when Patsy and Oscar visited Katherine in Seattle. We all loved her glasswork and treasured the yearly glass Christmas ornaments that she sent us. In recent years, as our kids have gotten older, Chris and I have loved spending time with Katherine at family functions, visiting each other's homes, and taking 2 very memorable sailing trips together. Dorothy recalls that Katherine and she shared a love of singing and connected in the 70s playing guitar and singing. She remembered her always eager to chime in and sing together. Last year, Dorothy and Katherine sang for her other friend Barb as just before she passed away. And it was a Girl Scout song that Barb knew, Peace I Ask of Thee, a River, which our father had also taught us. And we're going to sing that now, and you're welcome to join in as we wish Katherine and each one of us peace. And can we turn that off? Can we turn it off?
Peace I ask of thee, O river. Peace, peace, peace. When I learn to live serenely, cares will cease. From the hills I gather courage, visions of the days to lead, strength to lead and faith to follow. All are given unto me. Peace I ask of thee, O river. Peace, peace, peace.
Delia Scholes and Katherine were colleagues at Kaiser. Delia and her husband and Katherine were also longtime close friends. They shared their love of nature and birding and art and good food. Katherine, as you know, had many, many friends. Delia will now speak to the meaning of friendship in Katherine's life.
So nice to be here with everybody on this particular occasion. Well, I venture to say that friendships are among our most treasured life experiences, and certainly having Katherine as a friend has to be one of them. Now we have lots of evidence confirming that friendships improve even our health and well-being. But it can be a really hard concept to define. And I was struggling with that as I tried to tackle this topic, knowing Katherine's brilliance in this area, when DeAnn asked me to think about it. I've been reading a book that Andrea gave me on female friendships. And that author has some helpful thoughts that I'll share with you. They brought back to mind many of the essentials of my friendship with Katherine. is Sandy Sheehy. The first thing I saw that got my attention when I was struggling like this was that she points out that one reason we struggle with friendship is that it's what philosophers call a fuzzy concept. So she points out that there really aren't any legal or social goalposts, nothing that really recognizes friendship relationships. So there's nothing, it's not like a birth or a marriage. And that for all its importance, it can be a pretty elusive and even ephemeral thing. In spite of that, she goes on to note that there are expectations and characteristics of friendship and qualities that most of us actually have in mind. And in her view, some of the qualities that she considers essentials of friendship were some that I really noticed with Katherine as well. The first thing I thought was interesting when she pointed out that friendship is voluntary. So there's nothing contractual about friendship. We choose our friends and they choose us. We aren't born into our friendships. We don't acquire friendships as we might realize. And we aren't assigned our friends. So we have to find our friends. Friendships are mutual. So there's an expectation of reciprocity and give and take. Liking someone, of course, is part and parcel of friendship. But that doesn't usually mean that we like everything about our friends. And it's important that one measure of friendship is the way friends deal with the very things they may not like about each other. Appreciating a friend's uniqueness and individuality is pretty key to any kind of friendship thriving. And friendship also involves caring, working for, and being interested in the other person's well-being. The main thing that we rely on our friends for often is for the gift of comfort as we face life's challenges. Not so much the comfort of consolation, but the more rare comfort of being able to be ourselves. So people with whom we can let our hair down without risk. Finally, there is the hope and expectation that friendships will endure, but that's hard to keep fulfilling. I would say Katherine was really excellent at that. So there are many paths to friendship, and our experiences with friendship are incredibly varied. Katherine's were probably among the most that I've ever encountered. A famous philosopher, Muhammad Ali, summed things up in a way I appreciated. He said, "Friendship is the hardest thing in the world to explain. It isn't something you learn in school, but if you haven't learned the meaning of friendship, you really haven't learned anything." As those of us here and many others know, Katherine definitely knew the meaning of friendship. She had a brilliant way of making and keeping friends throughout her life, and I'm very blessed to have been among them. I wanted to close with a poem, but most of the poems about friendship seemed a little saccharine, so I hope this isn't the opposite. But one poem by Mary Oliver spoke to me about Katherine's sense of adventure, her love of music, and her love of nature and the planet. It's called When Death Comes by Mary Oliver. When death comes like the hungry bear in the autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut. When death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, but as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, trending as all music does, toward silence. And each body as a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I've made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened and full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Katherine was, of course, not simply a visitor to this world. She was a citizen in the fullest sense until she had to leave us. And we'll miss her for a long time to come. Thank you.
Catherine's niece, Katherine Memorial, aka Kallie, named after Katherine, found an email printed out and tucked away among Katherine's things. Katherine took care of her mother for the last 6 weeks of her mother's life. The email was to her friends about her experience caring for her mother. Kallie would like to share the email, Katherine's own words, with all of you today.
Hi. I originally planned to share just a piece of her email, but I realized I couldn't leave today without sharing about Katherine, the aunt. Therefore, I'm going to share a few memories I have of my aunt, things that seem ordinary but mean a lot to me and tell a lot about who she was as a person. When I think of my Aunt Katherine, I think of her loving auntie hugs and how she would hold me a long time after not seeing me for a while. As a kid, I remember staying up late to watch Disney movies together on her visits to California. We went to countless museums, both in California and Washington. On one family road trip to Wyoming, we listened to 9 straight hours of Lord of the Rings, books on tape. Our first bonding over books since I was only 8. On the 4th of July, she taught me how to bake pies, and we took them to a party to watch fireworks over Union Lake. One Christmas, she gifted me 20 cat ornaments, many of which still hang on my tree today. We always got through at least one book when I visited her because we always spent time reading and just being together. Before her house was built, we brought a book and a hammock and relaxed between 2 trees, the same trees that I visited yesterday. I remember her generosity. She always sent cards full of cash to Ryan and I on birthdays and holidays, a teenager's favorite gift from Aunt. She was always there for the important things, graduations, important birthdays, weddings, and to meet her new grandnephews and grandniece after they were born. When she came to visit me in my first home, I remember when she dug out an old pasta sauce container and scolded me for not recycling it. On another visit, a lizard got stuck in a sticky trap, and she spent an hour with oil and a toothpick detaching the lizard and setting it free. I loved commiserating with her over our toddlers' behaviors, meaning my 3-year-old teenagers, and her permanent doggy toddler named Annie. We had countless deep and straightforward conversations, especially when I was personally grappling with the state of our world. I remember how she made me feel. She made me feel okay to be myself. She always encouraged me not to be controlled by what others think, but to work on being my best self and being proud of it. It's painful and unreal that she is no longer here. There are memories every day that bring a twinge of sadness. Seeing her go through this journey with such grace and openness has changed me and all who knew her. She has taught others to be gracious, forgiving, and accepting. My son's kindergarten teacher always says that her job is to teach kids how to be good humans. My aunt was a good human, and she was one of the best humans. And this is seen through all that people have shared about her and her life. So when I was going through some of my Aunt Catherine's old photos, I found an email that she had printed and kept in a box with other special things. The email was to her friends after my grandma passed away. It brought tears to my eyes because it so poignantly describes my own feelings about this experience. Katherine wrote, "I'll return home to Seattle on Sunday. I've been trying to imagine what returning to my Seattle life will be like. Strange, I think, because I will return looking like the same person, but having experienced this humbling event." She then shared 2 Bible verses from Song of Solomon that brought her comfort during her mother's passing. Chapter 2, verses 4 through 13. "With great delight I sat in his shadow, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. He brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter is past, and the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away." I envision that Aunt Catherine has been called and rests in a place of peace, love, and peace.
Ray Newton is Catherine's beloved brother. He asked to be the last to share his thoughts today with you about his sister's passing.
A lot of you here. I'm the big brother. Normally, I'm not a particularly emotional person, except when I miss a 3-foot putt. But this year's been different. This year's been tough. When you get a diagnosis like my sister's and you know your time is limited, you have to make decisions about what's next. You know, one of the first things about my sister is how she handled it. I mean, sure, you know, there were tears, we all had tears, but she handled it with such dignity. I remember sitting there with her one evening, and she just said, "Yeah, I'm dying." And it wasn't in the nature, "Oh, poor me." She just accepted it with so much dignity and grace. But when you get a diagnosis like that, you have to then decide what next. You have to decide how you want the rest of your life to be. And she decided, after some thoughts, that she wanted to pass away, you know, at the home that she nurtured into life on Whidbey. And that was what she wanted. And of course, the whole family, many of the people you've seen here, we wanted it to be like that. We wanted to help her realize her final wishes. So, the first person to help with that really was DeAnn. DeAnn was there on the scene immediately. If you know DeAnn, she's a very organized person. This woman takes charge. And that was great. She had lists of who are the people to call and what are the phone numbers, and she was there for weeks. And not only was she there at the beginning, she made numerous trips and she was there with us the final moments of my sister's life. And we've talked about friendship. The friendship between DeAnn and my sister was just so close and so important, so meaningful. I remember her talking all the time about DeAnn and DeAnn's kids, and what a warm, loving relationship we had with each other. And then the East Coast Newtons who you've seen here. Paul, who's an emergency room physician, he was on hand 24/7 to answer any questions. Dorothy, who played guitar so beautifully a few minutes ago, was there for 6 weeks, leaving her home in Baltimore to be with my sister. And Dorothy's not a nurse. It's a tough job taking care of a person who's, bound to her home and becoming weaker, physically and cognitively. So Dorothy and Paul and, my wife and I were here multiple times. Our kids were here multiple times. I'm so proud of the way my kids stepped up to be with my sister and bring their children sometimes not. Ryan drove his trailer up, parked it on that land. If you look at that trailer, you say, how did they get that trailer? I think we're still struggling with that. But my wife, she would come up with me. She'd cook and cook and cook. She made a Thanksgiving dinner. It would have been Michelin 5 stars. There are some pictures around here somewhere of that Thanksgiving dinner. But there was this television show on a few years back. It was called Touched by an Angel. To be honest, the show was kind of hokey. But, Roma Downey and Della Reese were the angels, emissaries of God to come and help people in their time of need. And as my sister got more ill, we needed quality, full-time nursing care. That's hard to find. But then through a series of events that you are too real to really make up, we found our angel. And her name's Kim Buckingham.
Thank you.
She stepped into our lives. Katherine and I talked to her. She met my sister. And she said, I'm in. I'm in. Kim's a skilled nurse with decades of experience with death and dying. And she orchestrated the care that my sister needed to fulfill her wish to die at home. She brought on Tori and Tiny and Aaron to be there, but if something happened where they couldn't be there, Kim would get in her car 2 hours away in the rain and the snow, and she would be there. At the end, when we were there, Kim said, I'm not leaving. And she spent that last 13 days with us at the end of my sister's life and guided us through it, explained things to us, called Paul at all hours to ask about medication she wasn't sure about. So there's some people who you come into your life, you don't know how they get there. Kim, our daughter-in-law, Kallie, her mother's name is Debbie. Debbie has a brother. Debbie's brother is dating Kimberly's daughter.
They're engaged.
Which means one way Kimberly's going to be part of the family. So Debbie said to me, why don't you Michelle, I don't know if Michelle Farrow, are you here? I don't know if she's here, but she took on that miserable little dog, Rocky. Sorry, sis. Janine has the cat with 9 lives. So many people have talked about my sister's friends and all her many talents and abilities, and I just miss her so much. But I just want to make sure that the people who made her last wishes a reality here were acknowledged for all they've done. And on behalf of the Newton family, we just can't thank you enough. Thank you very much, folks.
So we will conclude today's ceremony with the hymn, The Sweet By and By. Feel free to join in. There's music on the tables for the words, followed by Andrea LaCroix reading a Jewish prayer of mourning. If you are able to stand now, please rise.
But I don't, I'm able. Thanks.
Katherine did love faith in a spiritual way, and so we'll start with one short paragraph from Litanies of Praise written by Paul Brain, a personal friend of Gail Reiber, who wrote a book I think might be wonderful read called I Thank God for My Immune System. One day I shall experience a sickness that isn't to death. I shall sense my mortal frame has no more strength to fight, and that my pathway is leading into the valley of the shadow. Let me not feel the despair of one who is losing a battle, or that a triumph of evil is ahead. Focus within me, O Lord, the light of your eternal spirit. Show me again that my body, for all that it is wonderful, is but the mantle of a greater wonder, my soul. Hold me, Lord, in such awareness of your presence and your love, that my parting from my body shall be but the opening of a more vivid intimacy and union with the spirit of my Savior. He who has been the inspiration of my stumbling body shall now be the very light and substance of my soul. Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, even during the most difficult times, you are the source of our hope. During this time of sadness and loss, we thank you for Katherine and the wonderful gift of her life. We pray now for strength for our family as we continue to support Katherine and as we seek acceptance and peace. Life and death go hand in hand, and there can be no love without loss. And most of all, oh God, at this time we pray for peace. May Katherine find peace now in body and in spirit. Peace in body as any pain or discomfort fades away, and peace in spirit as Katherine finds true peace in you. Into your hands, O God, lays our spirit. When we are asleep and when we are awake, you are with us. We shall never be afraid. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Blessed is the way of God, the way of life and death, of coming and going, of meeting and loving now and forever. As we are blessed with one, so may we be blessed with the other. Thank you for being here today.
So again, thank you so much for joining us today. I look forward to meeting you during the social hour. Feel free to help yourself to refreshments and share your stories of love of Katherine with others. And Cousin Paul has a camera here if you'd like to share a quick story about Katherine with Paul. He's going to put together a montage of stories and put it up on a YouTube link up on Caring Bridge. So feel free to seek out Paul with your stories as well as sharing them with each other. Thank you so much for being here.
We invited Katherine to join us on a sailing trip. It was the first year of COVID, and it was probably early September. And she came out, Tom and Jennifer, Kristen and I, and we were on Martha's Vineyard, and we rented bikes. And she was getting her seat adjusted, and she turned to the owner and said, "Do you have e-bikes?" And he said yes. She got one. The rest of us were on standard bikes. We did 14 miles that day, and she ran circles around us the whole time and had a great time. And she came home and bought an e-bike herself to explore Whidbey Island with.
I'm Susan Reed, and I'm a colleague of Katherine's, and I was looking back at family photos and trip photos before this gathering, and I came across some photos from 2004 when Katherine and I were together in Turkey at the International Menopause Society meetings. And so we went to Cappadocia, and we were taking a hike, and it was hot and it was long. And I remember as we stood at the trailhead being worried that Katherine might not make it. It was a long way to go, and how was I going to get her out of there if things didn't go well? Well, she's so game, so full of great spirit, and so courageous. We headed off, and she did great. She did great. But we got to this river with no bridge, and there was a guy there with a burro. I had broken my toe, and I was in a boot, and I decided it was not wise to walk across the stones, in the river stones. And Katherine likewise was not really thrilled about going across this river. So there's a fellow with his burro, and he got Katherine up on this burro, and off they went across the river. I got the ride too, but we got to the other side, and Katherine said, you know, he was a little, there was some impropriety going on there. But I think he felt a little bit more than I wanted him to feel. And we got off the burro, finished our hiking trip, and she made it all the way. And that is only one of many travel stories with Katherine doing wild adventures. Turkey and Spain, London, great times.
Oh, nice.
We were on the Big Island at our favorite snorkeling spot, which is Two Step. And the sun was coming into the water. Katherine and I were snorkeling, and there were 4 girls dancing for 20 minutes right in front of us. And we just held hands and floated in the water and watched this extraordinary performance. And it was
That is a moment.
It is.
So tell the other story about how you found your snorkeling locations.
One time when we were on the Big Island, we'd done this hike, and Katherine was a snorkeler, and she wanted to get in the water as much as possible. So on the way down, I said, let's ask the local people where the best places are to snorkel around. So we went to the first place where there were any shops, and we walked in and we said, where's a good place to snorkel around here? And they sent us to a place close by. And we snorkeled there, put on our clothes, went to the next shopping center, and did the same thing, and we snorkeled at 5 new places that day.
And she would have kept going until it got dark.
Absolutely,
right?
it was starting to get dark, and we saw the sunset on the way home. It was great.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
My Aunt Katherine, I have a million amazing memories of her from starting when I was just a little baby, and all of the cards that she sent me over the year, sometimes they were a little bit late, you know, like a Christmas card or a birthday card, but she always seemed to remember them. And there must have been, I mean, over the last 40 years, you know, 5 cards a year or something. And I still have a lot of those, and she always would write something very meaningful. And of course, she'd always send me, you know, some form of money. You know, when I was a teenager, she sent me like $20, and I thought that was just amazing. I could take it, go to the movies, and get, you know, maybe a couple tacos, and you know, as an adult, she would, you know, still do the same thing. And coming up here and visiting her, my parents put me on an airplane at 8 years old to come up here, and I flew up here on my own. And she met me at the gate, and we just had a great time. My grandma Rose was here. And I did that when I was 8, and then again when I was 10. And when my son was born, Jameson, my oldest, Kallie and I brought him up here when he was 1 year old. And then again when he was 2.5, when Kallie was pregnant with Remy. And nobody knew that she was pregnant with Remy. It was because we just found out. We're like, oh my gosh. None of my kids were planned. You know, they just all happened to occur. We told her that we were pregnant, and I remember throwing out the name if it was a girl, like, oh, I think I really like the name Remington. And Katherine's like, no, that sounds like a gun. That's not what it's going to be. And I'm like, no, that's what it's going to be, I think. So that's my second daughter, or my daughter's name is Remington. So anyway, she was the first one to know that we were pregnant, even before my parents or Kaylee's parents or anybody. When one of my favorite memories is when I was little, and I loved dessert. I don't really eat dessert anymore, and neither did Aunt Katherine, so it actually kind of worked out with the timing. Is she would take me to the top of the Space Needle, and we get this dessert called the Lunar Orbiter, and it would come out, and it was had dry ice surrounding it, and it was completely smoking, and it was just like this big spectacle, and you could hear it coming all the way down the, you know, roundabout as it came, and it was amazing. I got it 2 times. Both times I flew up to visit her, and she took me to the top of the Space Needle and got me the Lunar Orbiter, which doesn't exist anymore because I tried to take Jay up there, and it's not a thing. But that was a very good memory. So, she's gone too soon. You know, I really thought we had another 20 years with her. I thought she was going to see me, as she saw me, my dad pin my badge. I thought that she was going to be alive to watch him take it off. So that's hard, but I love and I cherish the memories that I did have with her. I'm so, in a weird way, knowing that this was going to happen, gave me the time to come up here and be content with how much time I spent with her and everything that I got to cherish with her. So that, in a strange way, is a blessing rather than her just being taken away from us. You're just like that. So we got to share some good moments. She got to spend a lot of time with my kids and my wife, and I will always cherish those. So we love you, Aunt Katherine.
Do you know, on social media, particularly with the whole Trump era, you initially were expressing a lot of strong opinions, and of course she had a lot of strong opinions that didn't always quite align with yours, and sometimes she'd kind of challenge you on things a little bit, and sometimes you get in a little bit. Were you aware about the time when she just got off social media because of loving you too much to want to fight on social media?
I think so. Yeah. I think, especially 5 years ago, there was a lot of opinions and a lot of stuff going on social media. And my aunt and I have different philosophies. We've grown up differently. I work in a different job than she does, and we just have different lives. But the wonderful thing about my aunt, the thing that people don't see, everybody sees social media, but they don't know that my aunt was a night owl, right? And I'm a night owl. So at midnight, I could call my aunt and be like, "Hi, what are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm just, doing whatever, reading a book or, playing with Annie." And then we'd have these conversations. And they're a lot more in depth than social media, where you could actually explain and you listen and you learn. I've learned a lot from my aunt, from her perspectives. And she has, the same thing she said to me, like, I didn't think of it that way, because when we don't live in somebody else's shoes, we don't see what they see. I think one of my friends explains it the best. He grew up in Compton. He's a black guy, and he's a cop. And he says, there's a 6 on the ground. Is it a 9 or is it a 6? Because from this side, when I see it, it's a 9. The way you see it, it's a 6. I'm never going to change your mind on that. That's just the way it is. And I'm like, okay. We just have different upbringing. So my aunt and I had very meaningful conversations over the years, and I really did appreciate those. And she shared a lot of good perspectives with me, and I hope that I shared some with her.
Nice.
Well, I guess kind of a few. One was during the sailing trip from out of Rhode Island with Tom and Jennifer and Alistair and Joan, and the bike rental in Martha's Vineyard, where it was like 10 miles. Was it 10 miles out or 10 miles out and back? And a hot day in the summer, and Tom and you and I and Katherine were going to bike out to Oak Bluff. And at the last moment, Katherine inquired about an e-bike. And we said, yep, it's more expensive. I'm on it. And then proceeded to smoke all of us. Just cruising along, having the best time. Smile. Let us try the bike out at one point and just how fun that was. And then proceeded to purchase an electric bike when she got home from Seattle, or Washington. Very cool. That same trip, we were sailing and in the middle of the channel, no land nearby, and Katherine, Paul, and Tom jumped in the water for a wee bit until realizing that the current was actually pulling the sailboat away faster than first thought. So it didn't last long. And it was cold. But also, taking us to museums in Seattle, a music museum, and the play about Imelda Marcos, kind of theater in the round, and festivals, and showing us Pikes Marketplace, and driving us out to Falls and up to Rainier, and just a pleasure to be around. And enjoy her company.
It was really hard because he had just come back to work and I was everything was
We're here visiting Catherine's home on Whidbey Island. Missing her and enjoying this beautiful spot that she created. Yesterday we spread some of the soil from Katherine, and I took my little dish and went down to the front and just tried to channel Katherine and think about how much she loved this place, and just soaking in the beauty and the peacefulness of the place, and just feeling Katherine's presence, hearing her voice, just really internalizing her, and just feeling that in her stead that I was just really soaking up and enjoying the beauty and the peace of this place, and thinking about how much it meant to her. And having had enough time with her over the years to be able to just hear her voice in my ear, and hear her laughter, and hear her explanations of things, and just sitting here, I can hear her. I can just feel her presence in this place, and I think that's been one of the most meaningful parts of this weekend, is sharing this gorgeous spot that meant so much to her, and in her absence, really soaking it up. Here's to you, Katherine.
Yes, honey.
Grandpa said girls can't smoke cigars, but Nana does.
That was cigarettes, and she used to.
And Grandpa is just telling you a story. It's not true at all.
And I've smoked cigars.
Kristen has smoked cigars.
I was in Cuba and smoked many cigars.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
What was that? I thought.
I'm getting some great stuff from your dog.
Oh, good.
I don't know. I don't know where I can use it, but
Yeah. Catching rain.
maybe at her wedding. I don't know.
There you go. Send it to me. I'll save it.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, so she's 5. 70.
So I don't know when we first met. I don't recall that exact time. But I will say one thing about Aunt Katherine is that how she made me feel always. She always made me feel welcome. Always. She always validated me as a mom. She always made a point to tell me that I was doing such a good job. And for me, that speaks volumes. And I will always remember that. I can't remember a specific racing game. Yes. I remember when we came up and I was pregnant with Remington, this gem. And she was the only one that knew. We flew up, and she was the first person we told. So we came with Jameson, and so that was really special. And we toured Seattle with her, and it was a really special time. We watched a Seahawks game. We're all in our garb.
I remember those pictures.
Yeah. And it was, I've never been a football fan, and I'm like, all right, guess we're doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But I'll always
Let's
remember
go
her.
Seahawks!
Yeah. Come here. You just want to be in it?
Hey, what are you doing? I lost my sandal.
You lost your sandal? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I think that that skill that she had with that people skill of
My sandal.
validating people, communicating with people in a way that made them not feel judged, beyond not feeling judged, but just feeling accepted and appreciated. And even though she might have her feelings about whatever it is, she found ways to connect with you. Like whether it's religion or politics or whatever, you could still communicate with her in a positive way without any of that getting in the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
One of the best.
The biggest hugs and yeah.
Nice.
You're cool.
Your mother, it seems like she was always concerned about the fact that she didn't have a relationship and that she didn't have, a guy or whatever. And she would, be worried about that. And she was worried about her weight and, and when you would talk to her without Katherine being present, she would express all of those concerns about her. But I think that if she could have seen today and seen what her life was and the friends and the community that she had created, that she would be so gratified.
Yeah, it's very true. I'm glad you said that. That hadn't occurred to me.
That's a really great point. Yeah.
But my mother always felt a little guilty about my sister's weight.
Yeah.
Like maybe I didn't do things right, or I should have fed her differently, or or I should have taken her to different doctors or something. And she kind of took on that responsibility when it really wasn't hers. Because we always ate very healthy meals. My mom was very, sure it was the 50s and there was a lot of meat and potatoes, but she was very conscious of what she fed us.
Yeah.
And took a lot of responsibility and pride in that. It wasn't her fault. My sister was overweight at times.
There's a little Newton streak in there that just does that.
Now, can Daniel sit with you?
We didn't inherit it, thank goodness.
Right there?
Other people's did.
Sit with you?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that Rose would have just really felt a lot better about her parenting after today.
Yeah,
right.